Hey everybody! With the PlayStation 5 ushering in a new generation, I thought it would be cool if I did a top 10 video of my favorite PS4 games. And instead of me just talking to y'all for however long, I edited some clips together just to make it a little more interesting. Alright, so what's going to take the top spot? Tomb Raider? Resident Evil? Will we have a surprise number one? Watch and find out.
Starting off the list at number 10, we've got Doom. This game really took me by surprise. It harkens back to old school shooter mechanics. The movement speed is fast and the combat is unrelenting. You don't even have to reload your gun, you just shoot till it's empty. You either have ammo or you don't. Whereas most shooters have you take shots from behind cover, Doom really encourages you to get right in the mix. If you're low on health, the best thing you can do is not run away, but actually get right up close and perform a glory kill to replenish your health. And while modern shooters typically only allow you to carry 2 weapons at a time, Doom allows you to carry every weapon in the game all at once, and selecting them is easy thanks to a rotary wheel that briefly slows time as you pick your gun. More than that, the guns are just fun to use, and it's really satisfying to perform some of the game's glory kills, especially with the chainsaw. The enemies are unrelenting as well, and even when they punish me with death, I welcome the chance to try the encounter again, because it's so fast and visceral and loads of fun. All in all, Doom was such a breath of fresh air, managing to feel old school and brand new at the same time. At number 9, we've got Resident Evil 7. Interestingly, when the series took its biggest leap into action with RE4, I really felt that was what kept the series going, its willingness to change. But by the time we got to RE6, it felt like it had just strayed too far from what made the series special. With this game, Capcom has really returned to the series' horror roots. This time you play as Ethan Winters, and he's just a normal dude. He doesn't have any special forces training, and he's just there to find his girlfriend that disappeared years ago. And for the first time, the series loses its third-person perspective and puts you right into Ethan's shoes, and this ups the horror considerably. Your situational awareness is gone, and you never really know what's behind you. And while the game doesn't really have that many enemy types, there's this constant sense of dread and danger as you navigate the Baker estate, thanks to the game's atmospheric graphics and incredible sound design. The game also features VR support, but I can't imagine playing it that way. For me, it's scary enough playing in the middle of the day with the lights on. But in the end, I was absolutely delighted to see the series return to horror, and can't wait to see what they have in store for us with Resident Evil 8. Coming in at number 8 is Destiny, Bungie's shared-world first-person shooter. After 5 installments in the groundbreaking Halo series, Bungie's next game would turn out to be similar and also wildly different. You play as a Guardian, a reanimated soldier that harnesses the power of light and a fight against the darkness and other malevolent alien forces. The story itself isn't too deep on the surface, but its world really shines. You explore ruins of humanity's golden age, from the Earth, the Moon, and Venus and Mars as well. And even though there's not a lot of life in those worlds you explore outside of the aliens that want to kill you, the game has this romance about it. You really feel like you're exploring the frontier, visiting places that haven't been touched in hundreds of years. And this is something I feel the series lost with its sequel, which while fundamentally a great game, feels way more video gamey by comparison. While many have been divided on how Destiny told its story, the actual shooting itself was just as top-notch as it was in Halo, and with new RPG mechanics, you find yourself getting attached and really investing time in your weapons. And while Destiny was clearly designed to be played with other people, I spent the bulk of my time playing solo, and I had a great time. The world is still filled with other players, and there's something special about helping out some random strangers, collecting some loot, and offering a parting wave as you continue on your own mission. In many ways, Destiny was an experiment. Not everything worked, but Bungie's rock-solid gameplay is why the series is still relevant today. At number 7, we have Nier Automata. Androids in fetish clothing waging war against cutely designed machines might just be the most Japanese thing ever. While it may seem silly at first, the game is actually really deep, and manages to do that without beating you over the head with philosophical exposition, something I felt games in the genre have had a tendency to do. The characters are really great as well, and the game actually needs to be played multiple times to really understand their motivations. 2B may come across as cold at first, but as you start up a new playthrough and take control of 9S, you start to get a better understanding of why she does some of the things she does. And since you're playing as androids, you upgrade their abilities by inserting various chips into their operating systems. Chips that might give you gameplay effects like increased damage or auto-using a healing item when your health is low. You can even trigger one of the game's many endings by removing their OS chip, as the game can't be played with a non-functioning android. The combat itself is fast and stylish and loads of fun to play, and the game manages to shift its gameplay on the fly. It'll switch perspectives or even from mech assault to ground combat really seamlessly. So really satisfying gameplay, memorable characters, boundless charm, and easily the best soundtrack of any game this generation. Automata is a game I'll be remembering for a long time. Coming in at number 6, it's Resident Evil 2. The original RE2 isn't just one of my favorite games of all time, it might just be my favorite PS1 game period, and I still think it's fun to play today. And for that reason, a remake was never really something I felt I needed. Particularly, I have always disliked when fans ask for, just do a graphics upgrade, as that just feels uninspired, and I don't think that would be as satisfying as people think. If you're going to remake a game, you have to change things. You have to modernize it while keeping the spirit of the original intact. And fortunately, that's exactly what Capcom did with RE2. Claire and Leon's Long Night in Raccoon City is beautifully remade for a new generation. The atmosphere is pitch perfect, and it's really nice just shooting zombies again. As ever alone, they pose little threat, but in numbers, or any of the game's cramped spaces, the level of danger rises substantially. And that's not factoring in Mr. X, the hulking behemoth stalking you for portions of the game. It creates a sense of urgency as you hear his footsteps getting even louder, and if you hear a door open, you know it's time to run. Another touch I love is, provided you purchase the special edition, the game lets you use the original soundtrack, which is one of my favorites of all time. In the end, RE2 stands as one of the greatest remakes ever, as it manages to stand on its own while also being true to the original. Getting into the top 5, we've got Rise of the Tomb Raider. While always really a multi-platform series, Tomb Raider had long been associated with PlayStation, where much of the success of the original games could be found. So it was something of a controversy that Rise was originally announced as a timed exclusive on Microsoft's Xbox. And sure, it was a bummer to have to wait at the time, but timed exclusives don't really bother me. As long as I get to play it, I don't mind waiting. When the game made its way to PS4 in 2016 to mark the series' 20th anniversary, it was absolutely worth the wait. While starting off in Syria, the game quickly takes Laura to the frozen Russian wilderness of Siberia in search of the lost city of Katesh, while also combating the Trinity organization. Of the 3 games in the Survivor series, Rise for me does the best job at balancing exploration with the series' action-oriented gameplay. The tombs this time also are a lot more complex. The puzzles are just as much fun to solve as the tombs are to discover themselves. And it's also got one of the best pieces of DLC that I've ever seen in the game, in the form of Blood Ties, an expansion that takes place in Laura's dilapidated mansion in England. It's clearly influenced by the wonderful indie game Gone Home, and is filled with nods to the series' past as you uncover the DLC's central mystery. While the game was released to mark Laura's 20th anniversary, it's so good it serves as a warning that she might just dominate the next 20 years. And that's fine with me. At number 4, we're back to not only Resident Evil, but another Resident Evil remake, this time RE3. And oddly enough, with the PlayStation originals, I preferred RE2 to 3, and with the remakes, it's reversed, with RE3 being my favorite of the two. I also like how quickly we got this game, a little more than a year after the RE2 remake, which almost mirrors how the original games were released. While some have criticized the game's short length, that was never a problem for me. It actually reminds me of one of my favorite games from last gen, Tomb Raider Legend. That game was short, but was such a joy to play, and was the first game I unlocked all the achievements for on Xbox 360. And incidentally, RE3 is the first PlayStation game where I unlocked the Platinum Trophy. And while the game is short, it took me just over 9 hours the first time through, and the game clock now reads over 50 hours, so I've clearly gotten plenty of bang for my buck. The gameplay is really great here as well, keeping with the survival horror theme while also adding a bit more action elements, which makes sense as Jill is a member of an elite special forces team. Also returning from the original RE3 is the Nemesis. Interestingly, in the original games, RE2's Mr. X only appeared at certain times, while the Nemesis in RE3 was much more random and could pursue you across different rooms. The remakes pretty much reversed this, as Mr. X in the RE2 remake stalks Leon and Claire for large portions of the game. The Nemesis in the RE3 remake functions much more as a series of boss fights, though there are areas where he will relentlessly pursue you. While some criticize this, I think this was the right decision. Nemesis is significantly more menacing than Mr. X, and if he was after you constantly, it would have just been too much, and the way they've done it really makes his encounters stand out. But really, I was just thrilled to play as Jill again. She's my favorite character from the series and my second favorite video game character overall, and I love her portrayal here. She feels very humanized, which is important in a game where you're fighting the Walking Dead. Here's hoping we'll be seeing a lot more of the Master of Unlocking in the series' future. Entering the top 3, we're back with Lara Croft in Shadow of the Tomb Raider. The final act of the Survivor trilogy sees Lara in the jungles of Peru and the lost city of Paititi. This is the most capable Lara yet. Everything from free-range swimming to choosing the outfit that offers the best advantage and crafting combat enhancers. There's just so much Lara can do, and combat itself is just as thrilling as ever, but the focus this time is much more on exploring the environment. Tombs are even more elaborate and dangerous than before, and not only that, the game's DLC expansion tombs are all a blast to play, each with a small story of their own. But one of the most immediate striking things about Shadow is just how good it looks. The jungle just looks alive. Trees and vegetation sway in the breeze, and the game's got some absolutely beautiful atmospheric lighting. All this makes using the game's robust photo mode a joy to use. And while the main plot is your typical end-of-the-world stuff, it's anchored by Lara and Jonah's friendship. Jonah is incredibly easygoing and very much at home mixing it up with random strangers. Lara, by contrast, is really introverted and much more socially awkward, which is something I can kind of relate to. We've had the Lara-Jonah relationship for 3 games now, and it's great to see how much they care for each other, as well as Lara having to come to terms with some of the things that she's done. And really, it's great to see how much she's grown during the series. She's come so far from where she was in the first game. I really can't wait to see where the next adventure takes her. At number 2, we're once again right back with Lara Croft in Tomb Raider, the reboot and the first installment of the Survivor series, which was followed by Rise and Shadow. Although I first played the game on PS3, the PS4's Definitive Edition really is just that. The Definitive Edition. The visuals and lighting are much more improved, and the game runs at a smooth 60 frames per second. I really love this game. I've probably played through it 6 or 7 times, each time getting 100% completion. It's just a joy to play. The game features large areas with an almost Metroidvania approach. Places that are inaccessible early on will open up as Lara discovers new weapons and items. While people might criticize the game for taking too much influence from Uncharted's set pieces, I feel like Tomb Raider was always just as much an influence on Uncharted itself. But regardless, those set pieces are absolutely thrilling to play, and the game is incredible to look at as well. Environments look great, and Lara herself is meticulously detailed. Her hair moves realistically, and her character model shows the cuts and bruises she's acquired during the game. All this coupled with the game's fantastic lighting, and it's a tremendously atmospheric experience. It's also really incredible to see Lara's origin story. She's not yet the hardened adventurer the series has shown before. This is all new to her, and she's got to do everything she can to survive. Killing and raiding tombs isn't something she's accustomed to yet, with Lara even comically remarking at one point, "I hate tombs." While I always thought combat in prior games was a weak point, or at best just average, here it's absolutely thrilling. The cover-based encounters are a lot of fun, and Lara becomes even more capable as the adventure goes on. The gameplay here, and the Survivor series in general, is really as good as it gets. The inventory never feels cumbersome, and exploring is a joy thanks to a really well-developed in-game map. If you get lost, you can always press a button to be shown where you should be going, as well as highlighting environmental objects you can interact with. And while the optional tombs do take a back seat this time around, they're still fun to solve. At the end of the day, though, Lara Croft is my favorite video game character, and for me this is the perfect origin story for her. It's incredibly fitting the game's tagline, "Is a survivor is born."
How are we ever going to get out of here?
And here we are at number 1, the best game I've played of the 8th generation of consoles, and it's Diablo 3. Every time I think of this game, I think of two words: joy and destruction. In particular, what utter joy it is to cause destruction in this game. And the funny thing is, I'd never played this series before this one, and even when I read about it, it sounded like something that I might not be interested in. But one night I was bored and I actually downloaded a demo on the Xbox 360. Right away I found myself saying, "Oh, this is something." I was immediately taken with it, and quickly ordered a copy for the PS4. I think people might actually tell me I'm playing the game wrong, as the series is primarily a PC game, and I also only play the wizard class, but I don't care. I always have fun playing this game. It's perfect to play and get really into, or just to play casually while listening to music. It's the type of game that's always there for you. The game has a plot which I think is just fine, but really it's just an excuse to collect loot and cause epic mayhem. As mentioned, I play the wizard class, and I love the level of destruction I can cause. I hurl meteors from the sky, scorch the earth, summon blizzards, fling tornadoes, and even conjure up black holes. And you need all these abilities because the enemies are as numerous as they are powerful. There's just so many customization options, and the game's got a great level of difficulty that can be adjusted if you feel you've become too powerful or are getting too overwhelmed. And the game's got a really nice art style too, and there's so much happening on screen in some of the bigger battles, and it rarely ever slows down. And perhaps the most important thing, the game just rarely ever frustrates me. It really is absolutely a joy to play, and the kind of game you can just pick up and you don't want to put it down. I never really saw this game coming, but sometimes those are the best surprises. I'm glad I gave it a chance, and I can't wait to see what Diablo 4 has in store for us.
So there you have it. Those are my top 10 PS4 games. I'd also like to point out just how much I love the PS4's share button. All those clips were of me playing and they were edited together, including the audio with the PS4's Share Factory app. I love how easy the console makes it to share gameplay. But enough about me. What about you? What games do you like? Thanks for watching.